Good day, guys! This is still your teacher, Momshi Ives, saying stay safe, healthy, and of course, please do stay at home and have fun in answering all of your modules. So, congratulations, guys! We are now in Module 3. Lesson 1 is about reflexive and intensive pronouns. To start with, let us try to find out the learning competencies in which you are going to master at the end of this lesson. So, at the end of this lesson, you are expected to identify reflexive and intensive pronouns in the sentences and use reflexive and intensive pronouns in sentences. You also need to have your answer sheet. For task 1, here is what you are going to do. Your first task in this lesson is to write down 10 pronouns that you know. Write your answer in your answer sheet. Again, you are going to write down 10 pronouns that you know. And you are going to write your answer in your answer sheet. So your answers this time may vary. Now guys, let's proceed to task 2. There are 9 different kinds of pronouns. Your next task is to identify each of the pronouns below and choose your answer from the words inside the box. You are going to write your answer in your answer sheets. So these are the choices. Personal pronouns, demonstrative pronouns, interrogative pronouns, reflexive pronouns, intensive pronouns, relative pronouns, possessive pronouns, indefinite pronouns, and reciprocal pronouns. Okay, for number 1, what kind of pronoun is the word himself? Again, what kind of pronoun is the word himself? The correct answer is reflexive. It could also be intensive. Alright, now let's move on to number 2. What kind of pronoun is the word which? The correct answer for number 2 are interrogative and relative. You can only choose one. Now let's proceed to number 3. What kind of pronoun are the words each other? The correct answer for number 3 is reciprocal. Now let's move on to number 4. What kind of pronoun is the word several? Okay, the word several is an example of an indefinite pronoun. Now let's move on to number 5. What kind of pronoun is the word he? The word he is an example of a personal pronoun. Now let's move on to number 6. What kind of pronoun is the word his? The correct answer is possessive pronoun. Next, we have number 7. The word is who. What kind of pronoun is the word who? The correct answers for number 7 are relative pronoun and interrogative pronoun. Again, you can only choose one. Number 8. What kind of pronoun is the word myself? The correct answer for number 8 are reflexive pronoun and intensive pronoun. Number 9, we have the word this. What kind of pronoun is the word this? The correct answer is demonstrative pronoun. And last but not the least, number 10, we have the word your. What kind of pronoun is the word your? Okay, the correct answer is possessive pronoun. This time we are now on task 3, and you are going to complete the sentences below by supplying the correct reflexive or intensive pronouns. Again, you are going to write your answer in your answer sheet. So let's proceed to number 1. The mayor blank spoke to the crowd. What do you think is the correct reflexive or intensive pronoun? Okay, the correct answer for number 1 is himself. Now let's move on to number 2. You can make blank at home. Using the pronoun you, the correct reflexive pronoun or intensive pronoun is yourself. Number 3. The children are able to pass the test blank. Using the subject children, the correct answer for number 3 is themselves. Number 4. We blank made the investigatory project. Using the pronoun we, the correct reflexive pronoun or intensive pronoun for number 4 is ourselves. Next, let's move on to number 5. The students gave blank enough time to finish the subject. The correct answer for number 5, again using the subject students, the correct answer is themselves. Now, before we will proceed to the next activity, let us first identify the definition or give the definition of the word pronoun and what are reflexive and intensive pronouns. So when we say pronoun, it is a word or phrase that is used as a substitute for a noun or noun phrase. The noun being substitute is called the pronoun antecedent. Pronouns are short words and can do everything that nouns can do and are one of the building blocks of a sentence. Common pronouns are he, she, you, me, I, we, us, this, them, that, and many more. There are 8 types of pronouns, namely personal, interrogative, indefinite, relative, possessive, reflexive, intensive, demonstrative, reciprocal, and demonstrative pronouns. But in this lesson, we will just focus on intensive and reflexive pronouns. So what are reflexive and intensive pronouns? Reflexive pronoun and intensive pronoun look alike. They look the same, but they are actually different. Both of them end in self or selves. Examples: myself, yourself, himself, herself, itself, and ourselves. But what is the difference between reflexive and intensive pronouns? They differ in the way they are used or function in a sentence, either reflection or emphasis. So what are reflexive pronouns? They are objects that refer to the subject. They end in self or selves. It tells us who performs the action in the sentence and is also the receiver of the action. In other words, the reflexive pronoun reflects back to the subject. It can be used as the direct object, indirect object, or object of prepositions in a sentence. We have here 3 examples. The stranger kicked himself. The word himself is our reflexive pronoun in which it is a direct object of the subject stranger. Next, he made himself coffee. Himself is the indirect object of the word he. Number 3, you should carry the bag in or by yourself. The word yourself is the object of the preposition of the pronoun you. So these pronouns are objects that are used to refer to the subject of the sentence. They are a necessary part of the sentence. For example, I made myself a sandwich. Myself refers to the subject, which is I. And I is what we called our antecedent. Another example, my sister and I bought ourselves popcorn at the mall. Ourselves refers to the subject, which is sister and I, and the sister and I are our antecedent. Notice that these pronouns are used with an antecedent, and an antecedent is a word that the pronoun is referring to. Since these pronouns always refer to the subject of a sentence, their antecedents will always be the subject. Now, what are intensive pronouns? Intensive pronouns are used to emphasize another noun or pronoun. They are also called emphatic appositives. That means that they do not need to refer to the subject. Example, my brother himself paid for the bicycle. Here, the intensive pronoun himself refers to brother, which is the subject of the sentence. Notice that you could take himself out of the sentence and it would still make sense since an intensive pronoun is used for emphasis. Again, an intensive pronoun is used for emphasis. It is not necessary to the sentence. It does not give us any new information. And you could take out an intensive pronoun from a sentence and the sentence would still make sense. Unlike reflexive pronoun is very important in the sentence, while intensive pronoun, it is not so important. It just only gives emphasis to the sentence. Here is a situation. Do not use myself as a subject. Wrong. It is wrong to say, Mark and myself played basketball yesterday. The correct one for this is, Mark and I played basketball yesterday. So again, do not use myself as a subject. Do not use myself as a subject. You can use the intensive pronoun myself after you mentioned I. That is correct, but it can't be used all alone as subject. Now let's move on to our next activity in task 4, and here is the directions. Identify the reflexive and intensive pronoun in each of the following sentences and indicate whether it is reflexive or intensive. Write your answers in your answer sheet. Again, you are going to identify first the word, which is an example of a reflexive or an intensive pronoun. After identifying the word, you are going to indicate whether it is reflexive or intensive. Example, if number 1, the correct answer is herself, dash reflexive, or it could also be herself dash intensive. So let's continue. Number 1, she bought herself a new pair of shoes for our mountain climbing. What do you think is the reflexive and intensive pronoun of this sentence? The correct answer for number 1 is herself, and it is reflexive. Again, herself dash reflexive. Number 2, the police officers themselves do not want to attack the unarmed suspects for the murder. The word, which is an example of a reflexive or an intensive pronoun, is themselves, and it is an intensive. Again, themselves dash intensive. So that's the correct answer. Number 3, you can choose a tutor yourself or one will be selected for you. The correct answer for number 3 is the word yourself, and it is an example of, yes, very good, intensive. So yourself dash intensive. Number 4, Stephanie forced herself to study every day so that she could be like her sister. The correct answer for number 4 is herself, and it is an example of reflexive. Again, the correct answer for number 4 is herself dash reflexive. Now let's move on to number 5. The firefighters themselves helped the people escape the building. The correct answer for number 5 is themselves dash intensive. Now let us have another activity, guys, for you to be able to fully understand the difference between reflexive and intensive pronouns. So here we are now on task 5. What you're going to do is to This one, understanding reflexive and intensive pronouns. Complete each of the following sentences with the correct reflexive or intensive pronoun. Then, identify the pronoun if reflexive or intensive. Again, you write your answers in your answer sheet. So, there is a given example there. Example, Violeta blank bought the groceries. So, the answer is herself, and then it is an example of intensive. So let's start now. Number 1, I fixed the leaking head gasket. Again, I fixed the leaking head gasket. What do you think is the correct answer? The correct answer is yes, using the pronoun I, the correct word is myself. And it is an example of reflexive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 1 is myself, comma, reflexive. Next, number 2. 10 relatives found in an awkward situation in a family reunion. Or the subjects, rather, relatives. Okay, the correct answer is yes, themselves. And themselves is an example of reflexive. So again, the correct answer for number 2 is themselves, comma, reflexive. Now let's move on to number 3. Grabbing the microphone, Martin Blanc explained to the crowd. So using the subject Martin, what do you think is the answer? So the correct answer is himself. And himself in this example is an example of an intensive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 3 is himself, comma, intensive. Now let's move on to number 4. The bag blank looks great. So using the subject, the bag, what do you think is the correct answer? The correct answer is yes, itself, comma, reflexive. Next, let's move on to number 5. We were forced to ask blank if this event should be pursued or not. Using the word we or the pronoun we, which is our subject, the correct answer is ourselves. And it is an example of a reflexive pronoun. So again, the correct answer for number 5 is ourselves, comma, reflexive. Now let's move on to number 6. Sarah likes to dress blank for the party. Using the subject Sarah, what do you think is the correct answer? The correct answer is Sarah. Yes, and it is an example of reflexive. Again, the correct answer for number 6 is herself, comma, reflexive. Now let's move on to number 7. I think that you blank will attend the meeting. Using the pronoun you, what do you think is the correct answer? Okay, the correct answer is yourself, and it is an example of an intensive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 7 is yourself, comma, intensive. Now let's move on to number 8. I blank like a late at night news. Again, I blank like a late at night news. Using the pronoun I as our subject, the correct answer is, of course, myself. And this is an example of an intensive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 8 is myself, comma, intensive. Now let's move on to number 9. We blank should make an action plan regarding the school problems on garbage. Using the pronoun which is our subject, we, what do you think is the answer? The correct answer is ourselves, and it is an example of, again, an intensive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 9 is ourselves, comma, intensive. Now let's move on to the last one, number 10. Mother blank sew the elegant curtains at home. Again, mother blank sew the elegant curtains at home. So using the subject, which is the word mother, the correct answer is herself. And this is an example of an intensive pronoun. Again, the correct answer for number 10 is herself, comma, intensive pronoun. Now let's move on to task 6. Again, from task 6 up to task 8, your answers may vary. For task 6, you are going to write a 3-paragraph essay on how you become a role model in your school, at your home, and in your community. Use at least 15 examples of reflexive or intensive pronouns in your essay. Write this in your answer sheet, and you are going to be graded using the rubric below. Again, write a 3-paragraph essay on how you become a role model in your school, at your home, and in your community. Use at least 15 examples of reflexive or intensive pronouns in your essay, and you are going to write your answer in your answer sheet. Now for task 7, here is what you are going to do. So assess yourself with the activity below to check what you have learned in this lesson. So you are going to construct a sentence using each of the following pronouns. Write your answers in your answer sheet. Again, you are going to write a sentence using the words below. So 1 up to 5, the words are itself, ourselves, himself, themselves, and myself. Again, you are going to write a sentence in each of the following words. Next, another 5 words that you are going to construct a sentence. So these are examples of reflexive pronouns. So the words are itself, ourselves, himself, themselves, and myself. So that is what we're going to do in task 7. Write a sentence of each of the words below. So that's all for lesson 1 of English 10 quarter 1 module 3. This has been your teacher Momshi Ives saying bye bye, adios.